Now, I wanted to make this video specifically because I know that there's a lot of people that oftentimes are trying to sell you on moving here, and they leave out a lot of the big cons when it comes to the city. So I'm going to be holding nothing back when it comes to telling you what's really wrong with this place and why some people choose to leave. In this video, I'm going to be giving you a detailed breakdown of some of the biggest pros and cons in El Paso, Texas for 2025 and beyond. Now, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Kenneth Lopez. I'm a licensed realtor here in El Paso, Texas. I've lived here my entire life, born and raised for over 26 years. And for the last 7+ years, over half a decade, I've been helping individuals and families relocate to El Paso, Texas. So I feel like I'm pretty qualified to speak on this because I've not only gotten to see my perspective of actually living here my whole life, of the things that I like and don't like, but because I help so many families relocate to El Paso, I've really gotten a chance to see, for the people that have never been here, what are the biggest things that they like and don't like, and I'm going to be giving you that in one single video. Now, I wanted to make this video specifically because I know that there's a lot of people that oftentimes are trying to sell you on moving here, and they leave out a lot of the big cons when it comes to the city. So I'm going to be holding nothing back when it comes to telling you what's really wrong with this place and why some people choose to leave, and you can make an informed decision on whether El Paso is the right move for you or not. So let's rip off the band-aid and start with the cons and talk about why do a lot of people not like actually living here. Number one is going to be the limitations around big city amenities. Okay, if you're coming from a major city like Dallas, Houston, Austin, LA, right? Miami, one of these big cities that has a lot of attraction, a lot of things to do, El Paso might seem a little bit boring to you. Okay, we don't have any major sports teams, right? It's all minor league stuff. And on top of that, the entertainment that we do have is somewhat limited, right? We don't have like a Disney World or a Six Flags, like big amusement parks. We have some smaller stuff, and I actually put together a list because El Paso can feel like, you know, oh man, there's not a lot to do here. Well, I went ahead and took the time to make the 61 best activities to do in El Paso, Texas. So if you want to pick that up, links in the description below. Let's move on to number two, which is going to be the summer heat by far. This is probably one of the biggest complaints that I have with El Paso is how hot it gets in the summer. So in the summer months like we're in right now, we have consistent days, weeks on end of days reaching 95, 100 plus during those hottest hours of the day, right around the middle of the day. And that's just one thing that I hate, right? So I make sure that I leave my house early so I'm getting into a nice cool car. And on top of that, the only thing is that, you know, when you're leaving the office, your car hasn't been under the shade, or you're out there showing houses to clients. I mean, it can honestly get really hot. So typically I'll turn on my car and let it run for a little bit with the AC on full blast to avoid that issue. And if I'm showing houses to clients where there's a lot of stop and go, I will actually just leave my car running throughout that time that we're looking at houses so I can keep a nice cool car, because that's one of the things I absolutely hate is the summer heat. Now, if the summer heat wasn't bad enough, it has to bring on a couple of friends to tag along, okay? Now, one of the things about El Paso is that we live in the desert, okay? And not only do we live in the desert, but because we live in the desert, right, the summers are hot and the winters are fairly cold, right? Not as cold as some other places. I mean, we're lucky to ever see snow, but because it's a little bit more of a drier climate where we're not getting a lot of rainfall, that leads to dust storms, okay? So we've had, you know, over the last month, maybe 5-10 different instances where we had dust storms, and it's nothing major like crazy you can't see, but I mean, it does get pretty dusty. You know, you don't really want to be outside because it's getting in your eyes, it's getting in your mouth. It kind of just makes you feel like gross. You just want to take a shower afterwards. So you end up wanting to stay inside a lot of the times when we have those dust storms. But at the time of this recording, we're at the end of July and we've started to see a little bit of rain, which definitely helps die down those dust storms, because with the rainfall, it settles the dirt. And now as the wind is blowing, less dust is being kicked up. Now, one of the things that I want to mention is because of those dirty dust storms where you want to stay inside, or honestly just trying to escape the heat regardless of a dust storm, you're going to be indoors a lot. And when you're indoors and it's hot outside, you want to have that AC cranked all the way up 24/7. So if you're going to buy a house here, make sure that it has refrigerated air. And if you're thinking about buying, there's a lot of links for you down in the description below. But this is where energy efficiency in your home, the type of insulation it has, the type of windows that it has, plays a major factor, okay? Because if you're gonna have your AC running all day, then that means in the summer months, your utility costs are gonna go up dramatically than they normally would compared to the summer. So if you're gonna move here, be prepared for the heat and understand that if you're planning on buying a home, or even if you're renting a home, look for a home that definitely has refrigerated air, double pane windows, and a high quality insulation, so that it'll help you keep those energy costs down and it'll help maintain the temperature inside your house for those hot summer days. Con number 3 is going to be low wages in some industries. So look, I'm just going to be honest with you. If you have like a low skill, very general trade, you're probably not going to make the most amount of money. I think right now here, minimum wage is like $7.25. Now nobody gets paid that, right? Everybody wants like $10 or $20 an hour. But, you know, especially if you're working in like these lower level jobs, like, you know, hospitality or retail, you can't expect to make a whole lot of money here in the city. Like, for example, there's not really a major tech hub here. So a lot of investors and a lot of big players, they don't really put a whole lot of resources in this city. So if you want a you know, expansive career in tech, right, this probably isn't going to be the best place for you, just because El Paso is a little bit limited in nature. So the bottom line is, if you want to make more money in the city, you're going to have higher trade skills, maybe a certain training or profession that allows you to charge those higher wages, because just any basic entry-level job probably isn't going to get you far. Con number 4, I know in some major cities, public transportation is very expansive and very prevalent. Well, in El Paso, not necessarily. I mean, yes, we have some public transportation, but you're definitely going to want to have a car here. If you drive Uber or Lyft, there's definitely some business to be made there when it comes to those peak hours. And I have seen people that do make $15 to $25 an hour driving Lyft just in those pre-work hours, like 6 to 8 a.m. and then those post-work hours from like 4 to 6 p.m., right? So if you can't get a regular job that, you know, pays you well, then you have those options that will pay you a little bit more, even if you don't have, you know, a college degree or any crazy sense of skill. Con number 5, which if you can consider it a con, because you're going to see a little bit later in the video how a lot of these cons come with some really cool pros. Okay, so con number 5 is actually going to be border town proximity. So the perception that a lot of people have, because we share a border with Mexico, is that it's very dangerous and overall not a safe place to be. But is that really true? I tend to disagree, but this is honestly probably one of the things that has kind of stunted the growth of El Paso over the last 2 decades, is that a lot of big players, because of that perception and because of that, you know, negative connotation that it comes to the city, a lot of big players want to stay away and they don't really want to invest too heavily here in the city. Now, we have started to see that pick up in recent years with Amazon making a big move here and building a big fulfillment center. And we have seen other big players starting to move their operations and having hubs here in the city. So we're slowly expanding and growing as time goes forward. But that's definitely been one of the big hindrances and one of the biggest issues that the city has had. Now, those are just some of the cons when it comes to living in a city like El Paso. But if you truly want expertise and a guide to kind of help you navigate this transition between from wherever you are now and relocating to El Paso, I put together the ultimate relocation guide. If you're planning on making a move here in the near future, the links are always in the description of my videos. So there's plenty of resources there for you to help you navigate this challenging time. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Living in the Sun City is not all bad. There is a lot of pros that come with some of the perceived negatives of this city. And that brings me right into the next point. Let's jump into the pros of living in El Paso. Number 1 is going to be the cost of living being so low. Okay, if you look at the national average for housing, El Paso is significantly less than the national average. Now, a lot of people enjoy the fact that the cost of living is low, but they don't enjoy low wages. And these are kind of things that go hand in hand, right? You have other places that have really high minimum wages, but what you often see is that that is counterbalanced with the fact that the cost of living is equally as high. So if you have a decent paying job in El Paso, this is a place where your dollar can really stretch really far. And if you look at some of the houses that we have for sale for even just $300,000 to $500K, I mean, you'd be surprised what you can get in El Paso for $300,000 to $500K, where in many other places that really wouldn't get you much. And speaking of housing and property, one of the things that you're going to have to pay whenever you have a house, unless you're 100% disabled retired veteran, which if you are, thank you for your service. But if you're not like everyone else, then you're going to have to pay property taxes. Okay. Now, people often complain about property taxes in Texas, and in this city specifically, that is probably one of the biggest concerns that I hear people talk about all the time is property taxes. So property taxes, you're averaging around 2 to 3% when it comes to your property taxes. So there are a lot of different ways to lower them. I'm actually in the process of building out a resource for you, showing you how to lower your property taxes. There's actually definitive ways that we've proven out with other people and their properties before. So check the description for that link. But when you truly look at the numbers of property taxes and how they compare to the other major cities in Texas, El Paso is still significantly lower than a lot of the other major cities. Now, on the topic of housing and properties, whether you're buying or renting, you are going to have to pay with property taxes. Now, when you're a homeowner, you actually see how your monthly payment gets divvied up between your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. But when you're paying rent, you really don't see those split costs. You just see one number that you pay every month and you don't really think about it. But whether you realize it or not, you're still paying for it. And so let's talk about some of the pros and cons. Well, the pros of the property taxes here is that it's actually lower than some of the other major cities in Texas. So that's good. But I understand that property taxes is a major concern for a lot of people. We're talking on average 2 to 3% of the property's value is what you're going to be paying in property taxes, depending on the area that you live in. Now, with that being said, there are a lot of different ways to lower your property taxes, and there are some pretty proven processes that we followed and implemented with our clients to help them drastically reduce the number that they're paying on their monthly property taxes. So if you want to learn more about how to lower your property taxes, check the links in the description of this video. I'm sure you're going to find a lot of helpful resources there. Now, speaking of resources, like any city, you need to have access to resources like food, shelter, water, gas, groceries, right? And so one of the good things about El Paso is that gas and groceries are relatively low compared to national averages. So at the time of this recording, at the end of July in 2025, currently gas prices are well under $3 a gallon, which is a breath of fresh air for a lot of people that are used to paying $4 and $5 a gallon. That's really not something that we're used to seeing. At most, when inflation was really high and we were seeing gas prices soar, we were steadily around $3.50, and it never really crept up to that $4 mark. But right now that things have kind of stabilized, we're constantly seeing gas prices around $2.50 to $2.80 a gallon. Number two, the biggest pro for me is definitely going to be the sense of safety and community. Now, El Paso and Horizon City is constantly ranked one of the safest cities in all of Texas year after year. And because of the military base, Fort Bliss, there's a big sense of military presence, family values, and overall the Hispanic culture is, in my personal opinion, a very accepting one, right? You have a ton of people that are coming in from out of town in the military that are being stationed here. So that's a whole melting pot within of itself. You have people that are born and raised here in El Paso and also New Mexico, because a lot of them travel in to work here. And then you also have a lot of people coming in and out of the city because of Mexico and the border that's there. So you have a lot of people that come over here to El Paso to work, and then they go back and bring the money home to their families. So it's just this big melting pot. And honestly, everybody is pretty accepting and kind. I've never really had any negative interactions, but I'm genuinely a pretty kind and caring person. So I tend to be very cautious about the image and the attitude and energy that I put out to people. And what I found is that is often very, very welcoming and reciprocated. Do you have the oddball that, is going to flip you off in a road rage incident in traffic or whatever? Yeah, I think that's everywhere. But I can genuinely say from the bottom of my heart, a lot of the interactions that I've had in El Paso, in fact, 99.9% of them have been positive, overwhelmingly so. Pro number three is going to be the good weather. Now, I say good weather, and I know I talked about that as a con, but that is a con for me because I don't really like the heat. I know a lot of people would rather be in a warmer climate, in a hot climate, than a cold climate where you're dealing with like rain, snow, and cloudiness. Me personally, I prefer those environments. So overall, the Sun City has the name for a reason. We're looking at 300 plus days of sunshine. So overall, it's going to be good weather relatively to what you like. Pro number three is going to be good weather. Now, the Sun City has that name because we have 300 plus days of sunshine. Now, I know that for me, the weather can be somewhat of a con because I don't like the heat, but there's a lot of people that would much rather have a warmer, hotter climate than they would be in a place like, Denver or somewhere up north where it's a lot cloudier, you deal with a lot more rain, a lot more snow. Me personally, I thrive in the colder environments, so it all comes down to personal preference. But yeah, we're getting 300 plus days of sunshine. We have low humidity. Okay, I've been to other places in Texas where the humidity is a lot higher, and honestly, that's one of the things that drives me even crazier is high heat with high humidity, right? It's one thing to be hot It's another thing to be hot and moist, right? It's just honestly a preference of mine that I'd rather have a drier climate. And so because of that drier climate, it doesn't feel as bad. I feel like the humidity definitely adds to it. And so another big pro for a lot of people is, like I said, there's not a lot of rain, not a lot of snow. I mean, we're lucky to see maybe 1 or 2 days of snow, and it's like not even an inch, and everybody's all excited about it because we never see it. But the winters can get a little bit cold, but definitely not like, Denver or any of these other places that the winters are actually cold. Pro number 4 is going to be strong military and job presence in certain sectors. So Fort Bliss, the military base here, actually does help the economy a lot in terms of stability. Now, that stability in economics is actually a great opportunity for military personnel that's going to be moving here and planning on using their VA loan to purchase a home. Now, the reason why it's such a great opportunity for them is because they're probably moving here from a place that had a higher cost of living. So when they come here, it's a breath of fresh air to see that homes don't actually cost as much as they're used to, and they can get a much more bigger, comfortable house in a much better area with good schools, where in another area that would have cost them an arm and a leg. Now, on that topic, for my military buyers, a lot of military buyers unfortunately don't have the proper guidance when it comes to buying a home here in El Paso, and I've compiled a list of the 7 biggest mistakes that they make when purchasing a home here in El Paso. So if you're in the military and you're planning on buying a home here in El Paso, then definitely grab that. There's a link in my description where you can actually grab it for free. We used to sell it, but now it's absolutely free for all you military personnel. Thank you for everything that you do, and hope that you don't make the same mistakes, and that's what that guide is there to do. Now, although we don't have massive tech opportunities, this has actually brought an increasing job market in certain sectors, like I mentioned before. These are things like military, healthcare, border patrol, logistics, especially, right? There's a lot of logistics centers here because it's just a prime route where you can go north, you can go west, and even cross the border if you need to for international trade. Are there actually some benefits to living on a border with Mexico? Well, here they are. Pro number 5 is going to be that it's a border town. Now, I know I talked about this as a con earlier, but you'd actually be surprised how many benefits there are being a border town. So for example, I'll give you a personal example. I went across the border to get some dental work done recently. Now here in the US, that would have been easily $2,000-$3,000 because I got like multiple fills. I got a lot of work done. I got my teeth cleaned. I got like this retainer for some whitening stuff, right? And all in all, for all of the medical procedures, just keep in mind, I had to go back 3 separate times because that was how extensive the dental work that I needed to get done. Because being honest, I hadn't been to a dentist in like years. I'm like, I'm brushing every day. I don't feel pain. I'm good. And so, yeah, there was a lot of work that I had to get done. And overall, I ended up spending like, I don't know, $300-$400. And on top of that, one of the things that I've really noticed is that, one, I used to think like, oh, their medical facilities are trash, right? It's just going to be like really low quality stuff. I was really nervous about it. But once I actually went out there and experienced it, like the doctor's offices were super nice. They were super friendly. And because me being an American over there, I'm like their top client, right? Their top client who isn't really going to complain about price because it's so cheap already. And I'm probably going to get additional add-ons, which I did. And I'm one of their top spenders. So because I'm one of their higher clients, they treat you like royalty, right? And they go all out to make sure that you get the highest level of care possible. During the procedures, they educated me on before, during, and after. They showed me imagery of my teeth before and after, and just really took the time to make me feel comfortable as a patient who had never been there before. And in America, that's just not really the level of service that you get. Not only are things 10 times more expensive, but on top of that, it's hard to get appointments. The doctors don't really care. They're just looking to churn and burn. They just want to put in, the cheapest materials, the cheapest tools. They get you in and out and bill you, and that's it. Because honestly, to them in America, you're just another client. You're just another patient paying like the standard. But over there, you're like the big spender that's spending the most amount of money. So the level of care and service is just night and day. And I have had multiple family members that go across the border for medical procedures or for prescriptions that are out of their network here in the US that they're charging them an arm and a leg. They go across the border and it's a fraction of the price. So there's a ton of benefits to being a border town, and that's just one of them. And this goes far beyond the medical space, right? This is really something that's transpired into all services and products there. So whether you're going there for retail purposes or maybe even just a nice dinner, right? You're gonna have a great experience at a fraction of the price that you normally would here in El Paso. And because this is no secret, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for cheaper products, labor, and services because of all of those people that come over here. Now, I'll give you another example, right? For example, I know it's stereotypical, but landscaping or house cleaning, right? There's people that travel from Mexico into the US, right? Into El Paso to work, right? And they work at, certain things like landscaping and housekeeping because that's one of the, lowest skilled labor that pretty much any can do. And there's always a high demand. So how is this beneficial to you, even if you never plan on going over there? Well, let's say you're planning on hiring a housekeeper. Well, if you were going to hire an American here in El Paso, they'd usually charge you, if it's going to be a crew of people, depending on how big your house is, easily $200 to $300 plus just for like an average house. And on top of that, because they're American, and again, you're kind of just spending what the average person might spend, they're really not going to put a lot of time and care into it. But there's a lot of people that come from Mexico, and for $80 to $150, we'll give you top tier service, right? And again, they feel like, wow, you're one of their best clients. You're paying them a premium than that they would normally get anywhere else. So they do a really good job. And honestly, they're really honest and ethical people. We have people that we've been working with for years to clean our houses, and we've never had any issues with anything, really. I mean, a lot of these people, they're just hardworking people looking to provide for their family, just like anybody else. And that brings a lot of benefits because we get excellent service at a cheaper rate for us, and we get to pay them more than they normally would make anywhere else. So it's a win-win for everybody. So like I mentioned, even if you're not planning on visiting Mexico, these are things that are still going to benefit you as the consumer, because even if you don't hire these people directly, right? Let's just say that you go to a general contractor or to a roofer or to a pool servicing company, right? And you are going to contract them to do a certain job or task around your house. Well, even if you try to go with an American-based company, a lot of these people, that's who they hire. And those are the laborers that they use. And so whether you agree with it or not, or think it's a good thing or a bad thing, right? Those are savings that get passed down to you because their labor expenses aren't as high. That means that the overall project cost and what they're going to bill you is going to be lower as a result. So directly and indirectly, there's a lot of potential and a lot of benefit for you living here in El Paso. Now, considering all factors, is El Paso a place that you would live in? Yes or no? Let me know why down in the comments. If you're a local here, drop some little tidbits about your experience about living here. I know that there's going to be people watching this that aren't from here, and I'd love for you to share some of your perspective so that they can actually read what do the locals have to say about El Paso. Now, if you're thinking about making a move here, you'd be foolish not to grab my ultimate guide when relocating to El Paso. It's absolutely for free. You can check the links down in the description of this video. Now, many of you guys are going to be watching this video at different times. So maybe you watch it a week after I publish this video. Some of you may watch it months or even years after I publish the video. Now, if you want to get the most up-to-date information, then I'd highly suggest that you check out my monthly market updates playlist. That is going to give you the latest information as to what's going on in El Paso. It's been a pleasure serving you guys. Ken the Realtor signing out. And as always, my contact information and resources links are all in the description of this video. Looking forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you on that next video.